What's up, core reporters? Welcome back to my channel. It's time for a recap of what went down on this week's episode of Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. Per usual, I streamed the show using Philo, and I've got an affiliate link to help you guys tune in as well for 1 week free. You can stream Gypsy Rose's show pretty much all of your favorite reality shows are on Philo. Now, guys, there's just so much to uncover here. This is the episode in which Gypsy Rose dumps her husband, Ryan. And we all know that she's dumping him for Ken, although she doesn't say it. We all know that that's the case. She and Ken are now expecting their first baby and everything. And it actually made me feel sad for Ryan. You guys know I'm not like a Ryan sympathizer or anything like that. I do think that he is problematic. I think he's overwhelming and overly, clingy and smothery in a lot of his own ways. But I did feel bad for him based on the way he was treated in this episode. So let's get into it, shall we? Now, when we pick up this episode, we are kind of on the tail end of that beef that Ryan and Gypsy had last week at the end of that episode. And the problem was that Ryan calls Gypsy, she picks up, and he wants to do a video call, but she's not interested in doing a video call at the moment. Maybe she's feeling like he's being too controlling, maybe too smothering, maybe too clingy, maybe too jealous, whatever, right? And so she tells him that she's not going to do the video call, even though he wants to. And instead of just accepting it, he goes, oh, is there someone there you don't want me to see? As if she would have had Ken all the way up there at her parents' home behind his back. Obviously, this pisses Gypsy off. She hangs up the phone and keeps it moving, right? Now, after that, Gypsy talks to her father about the fight. She's like, Dad, this is what happened. And then, they start talking about, the dynamics of her marriage with Ryan. And at this point, Gypsy shows her father a text message from Ryan where he says that he doesn't give an F about her dad's one-on-one time with her. He's like, I just want to love on my wife. That's your problem, Ryan. You think you are the end-all be-all of Gypsy's life and that no one else in her life matters and no one else is important. Your time with her is the only thing that matters. It's like Gypsy's mom said. You had her, you've known her for what, 3-4 years or something like that. They've known her whole life, and they've missed out on her 8 years before you even got in contact with her. So they need their time with her just as much as you need your time with her. And the way that you're just so on top of her is just too much. It's truly, truly toxic. It's giving insecure, and that's not cool, right? And so the parents both tell her that he's smothering her, and that smothering is a big red flag on his part. And then she tells them that she knows that that's the case and that she fights back against it, and that she knows that, and she doesn't say she knows she's going to need to leave Ryan, but she says, I know what I need to do, and it's going to be a long and hard road to get there, which is very much intimating that that's exactly what it is that she's going to do, especially when in the same episode, we see her do just that. Her father was always Team Ryan up until that point where Gypsy shows off that text message. At this point, he's disgusted by the whole thing. He's like, okay, now I'm only going to give this marriage a 50-50 chance of survival, which I do think is fair because at this point, Gypsy's really letting it all hang out. And when you do that, it's typically because you're ready to bounce and you're just letting everyone know, don't come here claiming that you were blindsided. You knew. I told you that we had serious issues going on, right? Speaking of serious issues, the camera then pans to Gypsy crying in bed about how Ryan bought her flowers and apologized for what he did when she got home, and she doesn't know what to do. To me, she was crying out of guilt. She's like, oh God, why can't he just continue to be wrong and to double down on it so that I could just go leave him like this? Now I need to work extra hard to leave him. I just dyed my hair. This hair color's not going to last too long. And Ken loves blonde. I need to have blonde hair, Ryan. Just what the hell? You're ruining this whole entire plan. That's what it felt like. It felt like complete and utter BS. And I don't know what it is. And I'm not even going to mimic it because I find it so disgusting. But the way the girl just licks her lips like a lizard constantly, that's why she has these ulcers here. It's because you're just burning your lips. You're just, all the time. It's really, really gross. I don't know why she does it, but she does it even while she's sobbing. It's like, girl, how do you have time for this, this lizard act while you're crying here? Anyway, so Gypsy then posts a TikTok about taking responsibility for her part in the red rum of her mom. And she talks about, to Ryan, I posted this video. Let's take a look at it. I'm thinking of maybe deleting it. Not sure. Ryan tells her not to. But, then the next day or whatever, later on, we find out that that video went viral and it's been getting a lot of hate online. And some people actually even straight up called her parole officer to report her for saying that she took responsibility. It's like people on the internet, sometimes like it's like full-blown psychos and weirdos out there. You feel like the girl is not taking responsibility or she's like manipulating to like get out, and she's sitting here saying, I take responsibility for my part in it. I did something. It was wrong. I committed red rum. And now you're going to go call her parole officer for what? Get a freaking life, Like that was just so lame. If you ever find yourself doing that to someone you don't even know, why don't you, if you really want to enact change in your life, go volunteer somewhere, like go be useful somewhere instead of just like doing stuff like this where it's just so damn stupid. Loser behavior for real. So Gypsy then tells Ryan about how she needs to delete those posts because her parole officer called her up to say, hey, listen, someone reported you to me. Like, what are you doing? Like, you honestly need to stop, like, kicking up a stink online because this isn't the first time. Gypsy and Ryan, they were supposed to go to some sort of like, what is that? The Super Bowl game. And they were bragging about it on the internet. What happened? People got pissed off. They said, you just got out of prison for red rumming your mom. Now you're out here bragging about wanting to go to the Super Bowl, wanting Taylor Swift concert tickets. Like, it's really disrespectful the way you're behaving, so you would think that she learned her lesson when they had to cancel on her doing the Super Bowl. And it was only because she had to go online and open her big mouth. So why is she again going online and opening her big mouth about things? So I get why the PO told her, girl, like, stop, like you're making this more difficult for yourself. Ryan tells Gypsy like, hey, dude, like, that's revenue. Like, no, don't delete it. That's revenue. And Gypsy acts like Ryan said the most heinous stuff. Like he said, yo, you know what? Let's go do part 2. Let's find another family member type stuff. And that is not even the case. You know what I mean? Like, he worded it in a way that was rather clumsy, but what he meant to say is that's your income. That's your job. Your PO is asking you to no longer do your job, by telling you to delete all of your social media, because another issue that the PO has with Gypsy is get a job. Like, you need to become a contributing member of society. Well, that's Gypsy's job, is being a social media personality, right? That's how she makes an income. And there's a lot of money to be made on social media. That is what her husband was trying to say to defend her. But because Gypsy had already decided at this point that she didn't want to be with him, she wanted to leave him for Ken, she was like, oh my God, is that all you care about is money? And she storms off running all dramatic to the balcony, per usual. She's always very dramatic, like a child running to their room to storm the door behind them. And so Ryan follows her out there and he does a really fantastic job of calming her down. And then when she comes back into the living room or the kitchen or whatever, he explains to her that, listen, the only reason I said that's revenue is because your parole officer keeps telling your ass to get a job. This is your job. Social media content. Okay. I'm being supportive of that. And again, she's like, and let me take down the picture for dramatic. She's like, but would you put a price on my freedom? Like, girl, that's not, you know what, girl, go ahead and delete it. You're being dramatic because guess what? Okay. You never shut that thing down, not even for a minute. So stop it, and, it's crazy to me, but I digress. So anyway, it's date night the following day and Gypsy's social media is not deleted and she and Ryan are in the car. So at this point, Ryan's talking, he goes, it's date night, and he lists like some other things. I forgot what else it is that he said, but Gypsy just makes like an ugh sound. And he gets upset about like, her not sounding very, not very enthusiastic about the date that they have, which I understand. I'd be kind of hurt by that too, of course. And then they sit down at the restaurant and Ryan tells Gypsy that like he wants to get her out, moving a little bit more. Like they're not able to do a lot of like, exciting things, unfortunately. They are in Louisiana, but it's not New Orleans. But he wants to take her to New Orleans. Particularly the French Quarter. But the problem with the French Quarter, if you know, is that like that's a hub of drinking, of bars and stuff. And Gypsy's not allowed in establishments where the thing that they primarily sell is alcohol. So that eliminates like, a lot of the French Quarter for her. Though I will say a lot of those places are restaurant bars, so she can get away with it, though it'll still cause issues for her parole, you know? And then he asked her, here he goes being annoying again. It's like, just have a conversation, Ryan, without being so desperate for validation and reassurance at all times. You know, like they were just talking about Nola. Then all of a sudden he asked her if she would still marry him or like remarry him. And we already went over this. Do you guys remember in episode 2, I want to say, they went to, and I'm pretty sure they were in Nola. They went and they saw like this kind of like historic home where Ken was trying to push for a second wedding, and then Gypsy, like, you know, they toured it and everything. But Gypsy wasn't ready to do that. She's like, I want to, like, you know, settle into my freedom before, like, you know, getting into full-blown wedding planning mode, which is totally understandable, right? So, like, they already discussed this. He already knew her position. And here he comes with a, would you remarry me again? Dude, you're already married to her. Like, stop it. Like, he really wanted to, like, trap this girl as much as possible. You already have her trapped legally in a marriage. You tried with a baby, but her nurse sister said, nope, take that plan B, girl. You know, so stop. And then she says yes when he's asking her this question. And she doesn't say yes just once. She said yes twice, that she would remarry him or, like, you know, do it all over again. And then you would think that twice would be enough, but no, pushy ass Ryan had to keep on, like, asking the same question over and over again. And so at this point, she just stopped. She's like, stop bringing this up on camera. Like, what more do you want from me, you know? And she claims that certain things should be private. I'm like, girl, like, I get you being irritated with him asking you the same question a million times over. I was irritated watching it on your behalf. But, like, you can't be like, oh, some conversation should be private. Meanwhile, you're talking about the D is fire on TikTok, right? You're on this show talking about he is shooting up my club. You know, I'm taking plan B. And then you're on Instagram or TikTok in the comment section of social media, whatever platform, listing out all the dates in which you raw dogged it with Ken. Like, stop, right? So at this point, Ryan decides to be annoying again. Like, he, you know, this is the thing. I am always telling people, and do I have an elastic band here? Because I'm always telling my friends the rubber band theory, because I have friends who have these abandonment issues too. And, like, it's really difficult and painful to watch, like, play out for them and to see how it chases people away, you know, the people that they want to stay. Unfortunately, I do not have a rubber band on me. But here, I'll do it with my hair. This is Gypsy. This is a person, and this is an anxious person, right? You know, I'll say a boa constrictor. This is him. You were just suffocating the life out of this person, dude. It's too much. You know, even if this person is not thinking about leaving you for Ken or another person, you going like this, they can't even breathe. At this point, you have completely constricted their airways. So what are they going to do but, like, get away from you in order to breathe? If you are worried about someone wanting to leave you for this, that, or the other, stand firm. You be this person. Let that person, you know, if this were a rubber band, let that person go further, further, further. And eventually the band snaps and it retracts, because that is just the laws of physics. Take a rubber band, see how long you pull it until it snaps back. When it snaps back, you're that thing it snaps back to. When you stay still, when you stay solid, when you stay secure in yourself, when you have your own life, your own friends, your own hobbies, your own everything. You know, the way he's behaving, I can see why Gypsy was overwhelmed. She had enough and she left him. It's way, way, way too much. Okay. Now, you know, and when I said he was being annoying, it's because now he's like, are you feeling cooped up in the house, Gypsy? Do you feel this? Do you feel like he's just, please, can we eat this damn sushi and get out of here, you know? And so basically Gypsy, you know, she kind of admits that that is the case. She says that she feels like their lives are very cookie cutter and routine, but that's life in general, you know? Like, I feel like life in general is kind of like routine on a certain level, because that is the structure on which a society is built, right? You know, you have a job that you go to a set amount of times per week, a certain amount of hours per day. Gypsy's not, you know, she is used to routine because she was a prisoner for like 8 years. Like, she should know routine better than anybody, you know? But yeah, like, it kind of feels like she's bored of him. She's bored of this relationship and everything. And Ryan's kind of hurt by this. And so he heads off to the washroom, and then Gypsy, well, actually, he kind of tries to pry to get more information on that, and Gypsy's not really providing that much. She's stonewalling him because she doesn't want to be interrogated over sushi, which I understand. I prefer being interrogated over nachos instead. And when he heads out to excuse himself because he's frustrated with this, Gypsy tells the producers that she's just in a mood, it's just not a good day for her. And then at this point, the dumping comes, right? So they're driving back home. Ryan's mm, mm, cruising down the street in my 64. And then he asked her, Gypsy, like, are you okay? Because it seems like you're like off, And so she claims to be okay. And he's like, no, I can tell you're not okay. And then, he lists things that could be bothering her. It's like you don't like eating in public or something, like, or is it like, are you feeling sick? And then he's like, or maybe you just didn't want to be on a date with me. So when he was listing the other thing, she's like, no, that's not it. No. And he's like, or you don't want to be on a date with me. She's like, and she goes quiet. And then the whole car goes quiet. And then Miss Gypsy Rose, she just all of a sudden asks him, are you happy? And Ryan, in the most aggressive, non-convincing way, as soon as she says, happy, he goes, yes, I am happy. Of course I'm happy. I was like, oh, damn, like that is just, something is off when you are reacting that way. When someone asks if you're happy, if you're going to be that aggressive, there's something off, It was kind of hilarious, but it's actually really sad because that's his anxiety just jumping out of him. And so she's like, she says that she might not be happy. And then, he's like trying to figure out why. And, again, I get kind of creeped out by their dynamics because to me, Gypsy Rose is very obviously like, childlike, right? In the way that she speaks, in the way that like, she behaves and stuff and carries herself like, and then I feel like sometimes Ken speaks to her like a parent speaks to her child, So when she says that she might not be happy, he's like, he tells her to like explain, but not like, oh, like tell me why. It's like for example, I have my nephew, he's my boss while I'm here in Canada. And when you're talking to him, it's like, oh, like use your words. Let me know, you're speaking like this in a certain way. And so he tells her like basically use your words, like, you would tell a child or a student. And I was like, oh. And so she tells him that sometimes she feels like they are different people. And he's like, yeah, of course we're different people. Like we're all different people, but we're not headed towards different things, which I actually found to be rather poetic. And he tells her like, go call Kian. You're probably already talking to him anyway. And guys, when I imitate the accent, it's not like out of like, shadiness. It's because I love this accent. I love the Louisiana accent like this one that Ryan has. I love the Tennessee accent. Like, when you see me recapping Teen Mom, I love the accent that Macy and Ryan have. Like the Southern drawl is so like cool to me. So I love the way they say Kian, wow, cool. And so Gypsy denies being in contact with Ken, but it's very obvious that is like the thing that like is causing all of this sudden discord within their marriage, right? And so at this point, Ryan asks her when like the issue started. And then he suggests that they go to marriage counseling because, like he's serious about his marriage. He married her to be with her and to stay with her and to like, for life. But she just doesn't want to be with him. And it's just really, really sad for him. And it was kind of like, awkward because they're just sitting there, in the parking lot or whatever, just looking forward. It's dark out and Gypsy's just looking around like this. Like a raccoon, like when you hear some rustling in the backyard, right? And you've got like, your garbage in the shed or something. And then you open the light to see what's going on out there. And there's a raccoon just there like this. That's what she reminds me of sometimes, you know what I mean? Or a lizard or something. So she's just sitting there doing that. And then she claims that like she and Ryan, her husband, are fine a majority of the time. And then I'm like, girl, then what's the problem? If y'all are fine the majority of the time, what are you talking about you want to divorce him for, And he's like, that's normal to like not be happy 100% of the time. You got to work at marriage. And she's like, you have to want to work at it. I was like, oh, she doesn't want to. And that's really, really, really painful. The fact that someone could go ahead, marry you, promise to be there with you, like through the ups and the downs and sickness and in health, for better or for worse, like for life. And only 16 months later, not even 16, like months after, like 2 months after they come out of prison, they're already talking about, I don't want to be with you anymore. And it's because their stepmother went and meddled in your marriage and basically told her to get back together with her ex, Oof, oof, oof. That was cold. That was truly, truly ice cold. So at this point, Gypsy tells Ryan, I love you. And it's just, I think that I'd be happier somewhere else. And then please don't think you've done anything wrong. And at this point, Ryan walks out of the car and just him like then of course the camera follows him and they do like a confessional, like on the ground. This is boots on the ground reporting, right? And he's leaning over the car that Gypsy Rose is crying in about, like, telling her husband she doesn't want to be with him anymore. And outside of the car, here's her husband talking about how he wishes she stopped doubting their marriage. And I was like, what is happening? Like, my brain is just gonna explode. This is so crazy that this is their real life. And like in the middle of this, your wife just told you she wants to leave you. You know it's for another man. You're like, it's time to film a confessional. Like what? Like reality TV is so fascinating and so bonkers when you really truly think about it. So at this point, Gypsy opens the door and listens. And so, like, she's listening in because he's on the hood, like the trunk of the car. And she's just there, like, let me open the door and see, like, what's being said back there. You know what I mean? And, he's like, meanwhile in the back, he's like, Gypsy's like always wanting out of this relationship, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so wild. And he says that Ken is always in the background of their relationship. And even though that's the case, like, he gets called jealous and controlling for reacting to it. And it is true. Like, I feel like anyone would become like jealous, like, controlling in some regards, where you're like, no, like, I want to see, hang on, let me pull up that photo again. I kind of want to see your, I'd be stressed. Like, I'd be like kind of low key looking at your text messages too. Damn. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be going through your phone, but like, I'd be taking a little peeky peek. Come on now. So he also tells us that he would never leave Gypsy, but it's her decision to stay or go. And then he walks off crying, and that they drive home after. And then Ken lets us know that when they came home, Gypsy moved to the spare bedroom for the night. And then he comes home another day and he finds that she had packed an overnight bag to spend the night with her sister, Mia, in Mia's home. And then we also find out that Gypsy's mom, Christy's gonna help her pack the rest of her things later on for 2 weeks of space from Ryan. By the way, guys, am I doing a good job or am I doing a great job of keeping up with these names? I used to always mix up Ken and Ryan, and it's like not that they look similar, it's just that the names are like so similar. If you're thinking like, and I mean this in a nice way because I really do like cookie cutter names, but if you're thinking of the most like basic like cookie cutter like names, like these are the two of them for me, so it's like I'm always gonna mix them up, but this time I'm doing a pretty good job of it, so thank you. When Gypsy's talking to like her family and everything, she says that she's in a codependent marriage and she wants to set some boundaries and gain some independence for the both of them. And then Ryan tells us, the audience, that he always knew that marriage would be hard for Gypsy. And it's like, okay, well then go blame yourself for marrying an inmate. Like, who told you to go write up an inmate? Like, like, come on now, you were really scraping the bottom of the barrel there to find a wife. Like, oh, like, this is my criteria. Like, we all have different criteria. Mine is like minimum this height. You have to, I like people with like good skin. I like people like, who are positive and stuff like that. These are my criteria. Ryan's criteria. Do you still have a pulse? Did you take away someone's pulse? That's it. Girl, Grace, why'd you say that? Like, that was kind of harsh. I just said that off the top and it's kind of harsh, but it feels like that was his only criteria, right? It's like, come on now. Anyway, Gypsy's mom, Christy, says that her marriage, she calls her marriage with Ryan a prison. And then Christy's daughter, Mia, is like, come on, mom. Like, I wouldn't take it that far. Like, dude, her sister, Mia, is so down to earth. And we know she doesn't like Ryan. But unlike Christy, she's not going to be an ish disturber to go and try and, like, ruin that home or anything like that. She wants Gypsy to do all of this on her own and figure this out all on her own without like applying pressure the way that Christy's applying pressure. Christy better hope to God that Ken is a good, great person that she swears he is. I personally do not think that that is the case. And I hope it's not the case, but I personally think that this is not going to last. They might even break up before the baby gets here. And I feel like, Gypsy gives me Janelle Evans and Portwood vibes. We're going to see how all that plans out. It might be you having to raise this baby because you're the one that caused all this in the first place, Christy. She's too much of a meddler. It really, really is disappointing to see her behave this way. Okay. And here's the thing, you guys. They tell her one thing that Mia and Christy both agree on is that Gypsy should have been living life instead of trapped in a marriage. And again, it's crazy how Gypsy took that to mean, okay, go ditch your husband, go get pregnant right away by your ex-fiance. Like, they just told you to slow down, girl. And here's the thing, and I mean this in a nice way. So I don't want people to purposely misconstrue what I'm saying when I say this, but motherhood, especially to a newborn, is motherhood to a newborn, parenthood to a newborn is like a sort of prison, for women, because this newborn cannot survive without you. You need to be attached to it 24/7 for months on end, like a year even, pretty much, like you are the only food supply. You are the comfort supply. You are everything to this child. That is like, and I remember Janelle from Teen Mom 2 describing, motherhood as a sort of prison. And she got a lot of heat for it, but, especially when you're 16 years old, all your friends are out there, dipping it and doing it. And you're, attached at the hip to a baby. Like, yeah, that kind of is like, the analogy for it, like babies are wonderful and beautiful, but it's a lot and you are strapped to them. We can't just leave it at home and go do something, you know what I mean? So it's crazy that she did all of this to herself so quickly when they told her to live her life, like a young free bird. Emphasis on bird. So anyway, Gypsy asked her parole officer if she could move in with her parents because her parents are in a different city. Because right now she's having issues with Ryan. The parole officer agreed to it. And then she and Christy arrive at the house and then the mom prays over her before they head up there and retrieve her items, pack her bags. Gypsy plays with the puppy that she eventually abandons, which was rather sad. I was like, girl, they didn't explain in this episode why she did not take the puppy with her. She wanted Pixie. She was crying, storming off on the balcony over Pixie because she wanted the dog. And Ryan was asking questions about whether or not she's truly ready to take on this responsibility. And all of a sudden, Ryan's stuck with the dog. Like, what? Very weird. And the state in which he left the apartment was, a little disgusting, but I'm going to give him a pass because he's depressed. He's heartbroken. He's shocked. This is coming out of nowhere to him, right? And I was kind of like disgusted when I saw like the food that was out there that was basically just being like candy, like Sour Patch Kids and Gatorade. Like, whew, I just know he burns a hole in his toilet every time he pees because what the heck is that, Gypsy was acting so concerned about whether or not Ryan left out like, oh, let me get a picture of her and that dog she abandoned. She was acting so concerned about whether or not Ryan left food and water for the dog. It's like, girl, you're acting all concerned just to ditch this dog. Like, what is the case here? If you were really, truly concerned about this dog, you would have taken it with you. It is your dog. Okay? Drop the act. Then the episode ends there. And it was so crazy to go from that, right? Gypsy making an escape from the house, Christy urging her to hurry, 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 to the preview of next week's episode featuring Gypsy talking about the divorce with like a nose job bandage over her nose. I was like, oh my God, this is just so chaotic. Chef's kiss. I know that they just released Emmy Award nominations. I'm gonna go see if she got an Emmy nomination for this show because it is the bomb. Maybe she's not eligible because it's still airing, but oh my God, like this, it was crazy. I got whiplash from it. And then the pacing of the show is just so good. Then we see Gypsy frolicking in the grass with Ken. She might have already been knocked up by now at that point. And she's like, I'm so happy and I don't want to lose this happiness. They better give us another season of this messy girl, especially now with a baby on the way. Oh, Lord, this show is too good for words. If you haven't watched it yet, I implore you to give Philo a try. You can watch for 1 week free, which gives you the opportunity to binge. I think this is only episode 7. Hang on, let me look at my notes. Yeah, this is episode 7. So you can watch an episode a day, or you could binge it all in one day, watch the documentary on Lifetime, and then watch other shows on Philo because they've got over 70 different channels. There's a lot of content on there, Again, the affiliate link for you to sign up for free is in the description box of this video, so you can go ahead and check that out. And in the meantime, let me know what you thought about this recap, the episode of the show, everything in the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.